Hello guys and welcome back to Mental Health Mondays. I hope you are all well. For today's video, I really wanted to touch on the topic of rejection. It's been something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. It's been something that I've had to deal with a lot lately, and I feel like I've definitely learned a lot about how to deal with rejection over the years. Because of my diagnosis of BPD, I feel like I have really not taken rejection well in the past, and it's been something that I've found really hard to work on. I mean, there can be so many different aspects of life that you can get rejected in, with jobs and romantic relationships, etc. I find a lot of the time we can take things very personally, especially if it's the case where we like someone but they don't like us. And with BPD, where your emotions are at such a high intensity a lot of the time, it means that you can take things like rejection really badly, because there's all of these issues around fear of abandonment, low self-esteem, etc. I feel like I have done pretty well to master rejection and, you know, carry on living my life and not let it affect me too much. I think this is the thing. When it comes to romantic situations, we put so much of our worth into the other person, so when we are rejected, it affects you. It affects your mood, it affects your day, it affects your self-esteem. And I have been rejected a lot in job situations and especially in relationship situations. I've talked in my videos a lot about my past relationships, and I literally have PTSD from being rejected when I was 17 from the boyfriend who I thought was my absolute world, and without him I couldn't carry on living. In the past, it's usually always been the guy that's broken up with me, but funnily enough, actually my most recent relationship, it was me who decided to end things, which really threw a spanner into the works, because I've never been in that situation before. We make ourselves very vulnerable when we let someone into our lives and when we're getting to know someone, and when that ends with the other person rejecting you, it can kind of lead to this, oh well, like, I'm never putting myself out there again, I'm never going to be made to be vulnerable again because I'm just going to get hurt. But I feel like with rejection on the whole, a lot of the time we let our emotions overwhelm us and we tend to not really think logically. When either someone rejects us or we get rejected from a job position or whatever it is in life, our emotions take over us, and this is when overthinking comes into play, and kind of this whole thinking about past situations. And what I would tend to do would be like, oh, this always happens to me, what's even the point anymore? We really let that other person rejecting us play into our insecurities and start to question ourselves and tell ourselves that we're not good enough, that we're not pretty enough, we're not funny enough, oh, they must not like this thing about me. And it's tough, you know. Rejection isn't black and white in today's society. Rejection comes in the form of ghosting, which can be really difficult, and also rejection in terms of someone can be so keen and talk to you all day every day and then not speak to you at all, but then they can pop up back in your life. So it's really hard to deal with in your head, because it's not like a clean cut, I don't like you, I don't want to see you anymore. Even if it is an I don't like you, I don't want to see you anymore, that's tough. I think for me, what I don't understand is why people just go MIA. I would so much rather someone told me, look, this is why I don't want to speak to you anymore. No matter how harsh the reason was, I would rather they would be honest with me so I could get over that, rather than me sit there and question all of my past behaviors. But I think when it comes to these emotional situations with rejection, I think it's important that we counter this real emotional response with logic, because what we don't do when it comes to rejection often is think logically. So I've put together a few tips to help you. These are mainly to do with kind of rejection in the romantic sense, but obviously like these can apply to any situation of rejection. So number one is to allow yourself to be sad and to feel all of the emotions. I feel like we put ourselves under so much pressure to you know, almost act as if we don't care, and immediately people tell you to go out and do all these things and don't worry about that other person. But the reality is that you are gonna feel sad for a while, and you really shouldn't beat yourself up for feeling like that. But the important thing is to remember that it's a phase, and you will eventually become sick of feeling sad and wallowing in self-pity. Allow yourself to feel the emotions, because it will become an issue if you bottle them up and if you try and pretend you're okay. Like, they're gonna come out at some point, so just allow yourself that time. Tip number two is to not catastrophize. So this is what I was speaking about earlier when I said the rejection from someone, it then feeds into this overthinking where we're like, this always happens to me, no one's ever gonna like me again. I understand that rejection can feel like the end of the world at the time, but it is so important to not let our emotions run away with us and not catastrophize. And that is what all of these tips are about. It's about using our logical brains as opposed to our emotional brains to deal with this rejection. And the third tip is to not put the person on a pedestal. I feel like when someone rejects us, we immediately think of them as above us. They are like the greatest thing ever, you know? You always want what you can't have. So if someone's rejected you, so you want them. Even in situations where I haven't even fancied a guy that much and they've been like no, I've been like, okay, so they've rejected me, I want them. We often forget to think anything bad about the person because we think so highly of the person that's rejected us. And one tip that I have found so helpful to do with any situations of rejection, breakups, etc., was to write down 10 things about that person that you didn't like, because you're gonna have found those things whether you've been together 3 years or whether you've been just talking for a few days, a few weeks, whatever. There are gonna be things about them that you don't like. Like, no one is perfect. So write a list of 10 things about that person that you don't like and read it every single day, and I promise you this will speed up the process of getting over that person. Tip number 4 is to believe what they said. And I'm saying this because I feel like a lot of the time when we're rejected, we can start to try and make excuses in our head and think, oh, they didn't mean it, they're just going through a tough time and they're pushing everyone away, or oh, you know, maybe there could be a chance for us to get back together in the future. No. Much as that gives you comfort in that moment, it really is not helpful for you long term. So whatever reason the person has given you, you just need to take that as face value. That's how they're feeling. Tip number 5 is to not link this rejection to any negative thoughts you've had about yourself in the past. This is what I was speaking about earlier. When we have kind of insecurities about ourselves and then we get rejected, it can really amplify and feed into these insecurities, especially if it's the case where you've been rejected for the same reason in the past. It almost confirms these thoughts that we have of ourselves, that we're not good enough and that we're not pretty enough. But we need to not take the rejection so personally and not let it feed into our insecurities. Tip number 6 is to remember that there are so many other people out there. In your lifetime, you're going to be attracted to so many people. You're going to have connections with multiple different people. This person is not the be all and end all. They may seem like everything right now, but the thing is, a lot of the time you will have felt like this before about someone else. Even if it's not to the same degree, you will have been rejected and felt like this in some kind of situation and got over it and found someone new or something else to do, and you have got through it. Things are not going to be this way forever, and you just need to remember that there are, as they say, plenty more fish in the sea. Number 7 is to fill your life with other things. Remember that guys or girls are not everything. We spend so much of our time thinking about people that probably aren't even thinking that much about us. They have their own life and their own things going on, and so you need to make sure that you have other stuff aside from them going on, so you're not just, you know, sat around overthinking. Tip number 8 is my final tip, and that is to take this rejection as a challenge of how you can learn and how you can grow from it. This is when we can work on ourselves, we can build on our self-esteem and not want to change for that other person, but want to change for ourselves. For me, when it comes to a situation where I am rejected for whatever reason, because I just like analyzing things and I like getting into like why I'm like this and why my brain is like thinking this way, I just asked myself a load of questions. You know, how important was the person to me? How have I got through this situation in the past? How can I work on myself and my, you know, self-love and self-growth, etc. Take it as an exercise to learn and grow from. And I know it flipping sucks, and a lot of the time you're probably like, really, I just want to kind of cry and wallow in self-pity. Instead of seeing it as a negative thing, like, I almost try and turn it on its head and see it as an exciting thing, because this means that I've got over another hurdle, or well, I'm in the process of getting over this hurdle of rejection, and this is going to make me so much stronger in the long run. So I really hope that these tips have helped you. I'm sending love to all of you who may be in any kind of situation of rejection. It's not nice, but we can grow from it, we can learn from it. Give it a thumbs up if you did like it. As always, let me know what you thought in the comments. I will see you in my next video, and until then, goodbye.